Muzzy versus Gallon is going to start the way we have been going here in Grandmasters with Priest versus Priest. It's been a matchup that's been largely deterministic of how the series is going to be largely influenced, and I think it's not going to be any different here. We've seen a lot of players going into their crucial matches be very safe, and I think that's going to be the case here once again, as we do have the protects and the bans through. We have another deck that we want to feature, but we didn't get to see played yet, and that is the Reno Hunter from Muzzy. This deck is not your traditional Reno Hunter that Gallon has been banned away from. It is a hunter that is aggressive and a lot more lean and much more mech-oriented compared to the secret package that you're normally used to. So we will see who gets the last laugh, because remember, this is a spot for the 4th place playoffs, which is good, but not the best case scenario. So both these players are kind of just fighting for a last chance in this season.
Yeah, I mean, for both of them, it'd be huge. You know, Muzzy kind of missed the boat in Season 1 after, you know, what was a monumental couple of years for his Hearthstone career. Gallon wasn't even in Grandmasters in Season 1, you know, so it would be pretty big for him to qualify for the playoffs in his first season being a Grandmaster. 8-6. He said in his interview yesterday, he said he wouldn't even be disappointed if he didn't make playoffs, because he said that 7-7 going 50-50 against some of the best Hearthstone players in the region would be good enough. Job done. But I'm sure that if we asked him today after he lost, he'd say, yes, I'm disappointed. But Gallon has a terrific start in the matchup. He's got no 1-drop from Muzzy, and then has 1-drop coin, beaming sidekick, and an inner fire in hand. So whatever Muzzy does in this position, he can get punished by that inner fire from the other side. And because that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised if Muzzy goes for like the maximum tempo play here, which would be Injured Tol'Vir and Silence on the Northshire Cleric. I just don't see a world outside of that that Muzzy can kind of come back.
Yeah, it's going to be the card draw and the value versus the tempo battles this early on. And it's something that we've seen a lot of players just favor with the inner fire early, just to stop that tempo from even snowballing the other direction.
Yeah.
That being said, I like this no attack from Gallon. Again, we've been seeing players avoid that entirely. This double Psycho Pop. Is that just too much? That's a lot to come back from. Gallon can't even contest this 4-3 as is on board.
Yeah. It's probably going to be a little bit too much, and I actually do like the hold on the silence on Muzzy, because if inner fire's in the hand, the Injured Tol'Vir dies anyway.
Correct.
But if you use the silence afterwards, it means that the Northshire Cleric can't trade over your Injured Blade Master as well, since that's what his curve was going for. So it's a good hold, but silencing that Northshire Cleric eventually very crucial. Now, Gallon has Ahmet, but Psycho Pomp being played a turn prior to Ahmet seems very good, and now he can make his pool even better potentially. He already has Injured Tol'Vir in the pool.
Yeah, both are great.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Injured Blade Master is the best case scenario, but I think you're still pretty happy with a 2-6. Plus, Injured Blade Master not only dominates the board, but you also have to consider the fact that while Pyromancer being traded into means that the Psycho Pomp doesn't easily die if there's a taunt being revived.
Yeah.
Because the first Psycho Pomp makes the second Psycho Pomp worse, just by the fact that the 3-1 ends up biting the dust. Now Muzzy, picking up the Neverset Ritualist with a deviation plan, now has the opportunity to just trade and get that 4-7 on the board guaranteed.
Yeah.
And I guess that makes sense, because 4 attack plus 2-3 is just guaranteed 6 damage on the board, versus you might get a 3-1 and a 2-6. A 4-9-2-5 seems much better in comparison rather than a 50% chance of high rolling.
Yeah.
I see a dark future.
But now a mech comes out. Currently, Muzzy doesn't have a way to deal with this. All right, now he does.
Oh my goodness. Well,
then the double silence tech coming in hot.
Yeah, and now Muzzy has the Psycho Pomp to, well, basically just revive exactly that injured Tolvir. I mean, the injured Blade Master hasn't even died.
Yeah.
Nor does it look like it will die anytime soon. And I think this could be, in Muzzy's mind, the opportunity to just get firmly ahead.
Yeah. I do wonder if the silence is worth it in this spot.
I must consider.
What he could do is cycle pomp and do something like pre-trade into the Ahmet.
Okay, I like that.
And then wait for maybe a little bit more resources used from Gallant to try and punish him with that.
It does require your opponent to have
Circle of Healing.
Circle of Healing in order to punish that. And you get to hold on to silence for, well, a bunch of other uses.
Yeah, and it's not like if they don't have Circle of Healing, there's like a big way to get punished, and it's even a detrimental effect to Gallant if he doesn't have Circle of Healing, because now every minion that he plays, unless he spends 2 mana to heal his Ahmet, is going to be 1 health,
Right.
which makes the trades even easier for Muzzy. So by silencing it, you kind of give Gallant the potential for stronger minions.
Yes. And now Gallon also has that Acolyte Pain. By holding that silence, if Gallon chooses to go for a Ritualist Acolyte Pain to try and get this 1/7 as a source of card draw, Muzzy has the silence ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's good foresight from Muzzy to recognize that he doesn't need to silence, right? Obviously, he wasn't thinking exactly never set Ritualist and Acolyte of Pain because he was accounting for a range of possibilities. But the idea is to account for what he may need the silence for later on. So this is a tough spot for Gallon. He has not made enough traction. He's developing the board, but that Northshire Cleric is devastating. I mean, Muzzy can play his entire hand.
He can play his entire hand and also draw anywhere from 2 to 8 cards.
I've more left in me.
Yep, now can kill off the Ahmet. And Gallon normally wouldn't be too upset with the Ahmet already, given that he has value, but the silence on this Acolyte is going to be crushing.
Is someone injured?
I mean, the Circle of Healing already is bad, even without the silence. Because he's just too far behind on board.
Too far behind on board. He's drawing cards. The Northshire Cleric is protected. Gallon only has a single silence in his deck. Oof. And that's gonna do it.
Concede. Muzzy gets that first game win, a crucial victory in this best of 3, and you can see the nerves just starting to leave each person with each passing victory. You saw this a lot in Europe, you saw this in APAC. When things are on the line, there's a lot of stress. When I say nerves, I mean more of the tension. Now, obviously, it's not that Muzzy has nerves and he's choking. It's that we've jokingly said before. It's more that with each step closer to your goal, you know, you take a deep breath, you start relieving yourself of that stress.
Yeah, and for Muzzy, this is just step 1, right? Qualifying for playoffs. He's made it to the last 2 World Championships. This, right now, just making it into playoffs is his final chance of qualifying to the global finals, making it to that, 3 World Championships effectively in a row. It's got to be a big deal because for players like Muzzy, where they've reached that high already, where they've kind of reached the biggest stage that you can get on in any given system. It's a failure unless you do it again the next year and progress further into the tournament than you did the previous year. So
it'd be the first time that we see a player make it 3 years in a row.
Yep.
Yeah, we've had a couple of players make it back-to-back years. Just very unprecedented in Hearthstone to have that consistency. Although I guess many people would argue, given the system in place, that, it's a different system entirely, not from HCT.
Yeah.
Either way, Muzzy's been a big part of Hearthstone's competitive history at the World Championships, and him losing here would be quite the streak that snapped. In the meantime, though, we're going to take our first break in this series, and when we come back, we're going to have Gallon and Muzzy play game number 2. Stay tuned.
Legends say powerful treasures are hidden everywhere here in Aldum.
If we hope to defeat Rafam, we'll need as many as we can get. He's already unleashed the ancient plague lords and countless monsters. Keep them distracted, Reno.
Not a problem. This plan is totally gonna work. Ain't that right, Finley?
Oh, yes. I have them right, Red Eye.
There is an artifact here. The name is...
The scales of justice. Oh, it must be really fancy.
only to be used in a time of great peril. Yes, I think this qualifies.
Hey, look, Finley. You've lured one of the Plague Lords.
Take this, fiend.
In the face! Yeah! Hey, guys, get that treasure. We've got a Plague Lord to destroy.
Yes, please, hurry.
Not to worry, Finley. We just push this thing right here.
No, that's a trap. Watch out!
It's all good. I am phonily tied.
Gracious me.
What we actually need to do is press this. And there. A fish.
No. It's the scales of justice.
Ah, who wants to use it first?
Oh, I do. Me. On second thought, maybe give it to Finley?
All you had to do was hold a rope.
Here we go, blaming the tall, ruggedly handsome guy again.
Mazahidul Islam. I go by Muzzy in game. My username, as you know, my first name is Mazahidul. It's kind of difficult to say for some people, and every time someone calls you, they're gonna have to say, "Hey, Mazahidul." That's long, and you don't want to say that. My friend gave me a nickname, like, "Hey Muzz, hey Muzzy." So I sort of just took that, and name's Muzzy. I took a look at the list of players. Some of them have been more focused on streaming, I would say, in these past few years. I've participated at the highest levels of competition that they might not have appeared in. I'm the player to beat in my group, for sure. The thing that I most look forward to about competing in Grandmasters is the thrill of the competition. It's really why I play Hearthstone. It's what I've enjoyed doing for the past 3-4 years, and it's what I'll continue to enjoy doing, hopefully. I think Hearthstone Instinct is definitely my greatest skill set. I think that if I took a break for a while and didn't play the game and came back to new cards, I think I could pilot a new deck fairly well, fairly quickly. People would always mention the term burnout to me. Burnout, burnout, burnout. I didn't know what it was. I would constantly play Hearthstone all the time. I definitely want to have more titles and put my name in Hearthstone history.
Reno Hunter has arrived. This is a deck that we've talked about all weekend long, and we might be able to see it for the first and potentially only time here, given that Saiyan hasn't had a chance to play it yet, and Muzzy and Saiyan are the ones bringing this very interesting aggro Reno Hunter to the mix. For people who are not familiar with why that is because normally you play a secret package that has a lot of spells, and then you use things like Unleash the Beast, Mark Shot, etc., in order to get a lot of Zul'jin value. But if you look, the top end of this deck is at Octosari. And instead of having a lot of secrets, they just have more proactive mechs to play, like upgradable Framebot, a War Gear, Spider Bomb, Nightmare Amalgam, which is also an elemental, incidentally, for Sandbiter to draw. So there's also the Tiamat and the Zephyrs. A lot of interesting proactivity going on in this deck. So we're going to go into game number 2. And I have high hopes for this deck because I want to see it make a splash. And the reason why is because I think Hunter is an underrated class, one of the best performing archetypes in the entire GM that many of the Western players were somewhat scoffing at, and now has sort of making its way back into the lineups that we see in the past couple weeks.
To be fair, with the limited amount of sample size that we did have, at least in Americas, Hunter was kind of struggling. I don't know what that's due to. You know, I mentioned low sample size. It could just be because of that, but APAC has been kind of carrying that Hunter win rate through all the regions of Grandmasters for some time, it feels.
Sure. I mean, it's a small sample size, but its sample size was small but very effective. People wrote off his performance as, well, it's only like 20 games. And then 20 became 30, became 40. And now it's at 50 games at a 60% win rate, DJ.
Yeah.
So I think, like, at that point, you're like, well, I'm just ignoring the trends, right? And the idea of Hearthstone, when you're playing at a game at a high level like this, is that you're supposed to be able to identify trends a little bit quicker than your opponent. You don't have to be so far ahead, right, that you have to be the one completely innovating. You don't have to be playing like Tespionage Rogue in order to try to beat your opponents. Just being a step or two, or even just like slightly ahead with like tweaking decks, you know, we're talking about Spellword Jewelry, Question type of things. Yeah, that's enough. And I think that that's what Muzzy's doing. He's saying, I'm not going to like play some, you know, Beast Hunter or play Quest Hunter, these really out there things. I'm just going to take an existing archetype and try to make it a little bit better. And that's what I appreciate a lot about what this deck is bringing to the table this week.
Yeah, and it's not even like he brought it because there's nothing on the line this week. You know, I'm just playing for seeding or whatever. He's playing for a playoff spot, so he put a playoff spot on the line with this deck, and I do like it a lot. You can see it does get on the board a lot faster than the normal Highlander Hunter, who would, you know, just be playing secrets. You know, the fastest they get on the board is with the Secret Keeper and Sunreaver Spy, which are one-ofs. This deck has, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/2 drops that it can play on the board proactively. Now, it doesn't have some of the reactive cards that normal Highlander Hunter does with, you know, Unleash the Beast or Zul'jin or Unleash the Hounds. But its ability to take the board and hold it is pretty good. And against Druid, if Muzzy can pile on some aggression early, he's got a lot of ways to finish out this game with Dino Tamer Brand, with Leroy Jenkins, with a bunch of big magnetics and a lot of magnetic targets. So Gallon's going to have to try and minimize the impact that Muzzy's having on this board right away. And it looks like Gallon's going to have a pretty dead turn this turn unless he wants to completely forego quest progress, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a path to victory for him.
Yeah, a lot of times as the Druid, you have to consider whether or not you deviate from finishing your quest on time. And even if he did finish the quest on time, does he even have something super impactful on the board? He does have Hidden Oasis, which is nice. But Hidden Oasis, you often have to have a follow-up plan. Usually a Nubisat Defender is a lot of tempo, but you know the idea is that your opponent can often just remove and push the damage. There's a lot of tension that's being built up, and there's a tipping point eventually where you're just taking too much damage by just playing Hidden Oasis. That's a great draw. So Nightmare Amalgam is a card that I think in Hunter has not performed super well based off the data compared to, say, like Animal Companion. But the idea is its flexibility both as a beast and as a mech, which allows a Hunter to have this sort of hybrid approach. And now, because there's two very big threats, this War Gear looks incredibly powerful. And this is exactly the position that people have been theory crafting War Gear for over a year, right? The idea is that War Gear was one of the most hyped cards from Boomsday expansion from last summer, and it just never really lived up to the hype. But whenever you're able to stack a proactive game plan with War Gear, it just feels so good, TJ.
Yeah, I feel like War Gear is one of the most played neutral mechs in Grandmasters, just because, you know, obviously the legendaries, Ziliax and Snip Snap are all over the place, but War Gear, we've seen it in like warrior decks, we've seen it in just about every single deck that includes any type of mechs, Paladin.
Mech Hunter.
Yep, Mech Hunter. It was a big specialist tech last season in Warrior Mirrors because you'd play a more mid-range variation, more aggressive variation with War Gear in your secondary deck.
Yeah.
And be able to punish in the mid-game a little bit for Control Warriors and try and capitalize on weak spots. But
yeah, the theory was that Blessing of Kings is pretty strong, right, as a tempo option to just pressure your opponent. And also the fact that it comes with the ability to just play it onto the board. The real challenge that came into it was the fact that the games were often decided before that, and also that Giggling Inventor at 5 mana seemed to stop Wargear from being effective.
Yeah.
Then Giggling Inventor got nerfed to 7 mana, but by then there's like a lot of other things into the mix. Odd Paladin was like unstoppable at that point, and Odd Rogue, which made Wargear feel a little too slow, relatively speaking. Then the meta shifted with Hunter dominating Roscon's Rumble, and then Wargear really didn't get to shine very much. And then come rotation around Rise of Shadows, that's when we finally got to see Wargear scene play. Just for some historical context.
And it's all relevant because this looks very much like a Wargear turn.
Yeah,
Gallon's
that's a lot of damage. That's what, 15 on board, 16 on board?
17 if you include the swing.
Whew.
I mean, Muzzier's pushing close to lethal here. He's got Leroy in hand, so Gallon has to do a lot. And keep in mind, this isn't just a mech hunter that gasses out, right? He's got his damage from hand is kill command with the beast. He's got Leroy Jenkins. He's got Dino Tamer Bran. It's a ton of damage, and you can see how powerful his deck is when it curves out. And Gallon is going to be on like a Hidden Oasis into Hidden Oasis plan, just to kind of have a chance in this one. But as we get to these later turns and Gallon has access to more mana, you know, all of a sudden Anubisat Defenders become really good, Oasis Surgers become really good, just things that help him kind of have bursts of power onto the board, which is what Druid can excel at once that quest is complete.
Yep, Muzzy can continue to stack this Mecharoo, which is just frighteningly powerful. Hitting for 10. This Mecharoo is way out of control at this point. And Gallon can't go for a silence. In fact, this Keeper of the Grove, Innervate, Drew the Claw looks pretty meaty, but you are still vulnerable to the direct damage.
Yeah, we're going into turn 7. So at this point, Gallon has to think, can I beat Dino Tamer Brand? Can I survive through it? Or do I need something extra? If he does go for the Keeper of the Grove double Innervate Drew the Claw, he would be alive. If he goes for Ferocious Howl into Keeper of the Grove,
there's also the threat of just kill command.
There's the threat of kill command.
If you just kill command and hero power next turn, because there's a Simmerfly on the board and a Locust.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is a scary moment for Gallon. Without the mana flexibility that it used to have with Innervates being 2 mana, which would have been absolutely crushing because he would have been able to hit Oasis and Keeper of the Grove.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to go for the play around Dino Tamer Brand strat, which makes sense given his current position.
Looking for kill command. Gets it.
Found it.
That's going to be a 2-0. The Mech Hunter killing on 7. What is this, Undertaker days? This is exactly when Hunter used to get the kills against Druid.
I mean, I feel like that's how the deck operates. You kill him on 7 with Dino Tamer Brand, and if you don't, you Octosari to reload your hand. Like,
absolutely filthy start here from the Mech Hunter, the Mech Highlander Hunter, the tech paying off. And that risk that Muzzy has taken with his deck building has earned him a spot in next week's playoffs. And the dream for a 3-peat appearance in the World Championship, or the Global Finals as we call it now, is still alive for Muzzy.
Yeah. And Gallon finishes 7-7.
Yep, not 7-8.
Not 7-8.
That's not actually possible.
Not possible unless there is a tiebreaker scenario where you have to play an extra match to break a tie, if tiebreaker 1 and tiebreaker 2 are both
Only
tied.
TJ.
But we haven't had that yet. It's very unlikely. And I don't think there's even a situation where that could happen today.
Yes.
So.
If, for clarification, what TJ is referring to is if you tie on tiebreaker 1, which is your head-to-head, you tie on tiebreaker 2, which is the strength of your opponent's wins, and then if you that means you go to a tiebreaker 3, which there is no precedent, therefore you play a final head-to-head.
You play a final head-to-head.
Psycho and Pheno were dangerously close
Yes.
to be, which I think would have been really fun as a dramatic finish. Personally, I think I would have loved to see that
Yeah.
Pheno versus Psycho, like one best of 3, or maybe you just turn into a best of 13, who knows? That would have been really fun.
Yeah.
Either way, the man of the moment, Muzzy, our 4th and final person in Division A, joining us for playoffs, keeping the Global Finals dream alive for 3 years running, is on the line. Muzzy, can you hear us?
Yeah, what's up?
You're right. You look exhausted. You're right there, bud.
I've been pretty stressed. Like this season hasn't been easy for me in terms of my matches. Like with relegation and everything on the line, there's so much more pressure. And earlier on in the season, I let the mental stuff get to me, and I didn't perform on the top level that I can. And since then, like I've been working on it. I went to see a therapist about it too, and I've been reducing my anxiety during my matches, and I've been able to play better these past 2 weeks, and they showed results in my performance. So I'm very happy to make it to playoffs.
Fantastic. That's right. 2 really big wins back to back to wrap it up. Let's talk a little bit about that Hunter, shall we?
Woo.
That Hunter was sick. It killed just as fast as like the Undertaker Hunter back in the days, like turn 6, turn 7, and your opponent like healed for so much life. It was that was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. Like I got pretty much one of the best curves I could with the 1-drop and the amalgam and war gearing it up. It was all about making the health totals and the board states awkward for the Druids, Starfall, and their Oasis Surgers. You just want to make it so like they don't completely blow you out. He had the Worthy Expedition, so this Keeper of the Grove kind of surprised me there at the end. I was thinking he needed like another Lodi, potentially off Floop, or some Wrath Silence to deal with that. And then even then, I had the tracking in hand, and I still had the outs with the kill command, so I was able to get that. And yeah. Pretty intense.
All right, well, we won't keep you too much longer there because I know that you probably want to start getting some rest, especially for next week. We've been talking a little bit about how you could be the first player to make it to 3 effective World Championships / Global Finals in a row. Is that weighing on your mind at all as you're like kind of carrying around that weight that you've been discussing?
That isn't carrying on my mind as much as the matches before me. I always want to succeed. In my mind, it's always about the matches ahead and whichever match I'm playing next. So I want to win that. So I'm not thinking that far ahead, but I would I don't know. I'm just a bit flustered right now.
Sure. Yeah. Are you attending that boot camp that everyone else, not everyone else, but a group of players like Saiyan and Hunter Ace were discussing about happening over in Greece?
Yeah, Saiyan and I are leaving tomorrow morning bright and early at like 7 a.m. So.
Wow. You booked it even before he knew he was going to playoffs. But I mean, it's in preparation for Bucharest.
Yeah, it's for Bucharest and cheering on friends, and haven't seen them in a while, so it'd be nice to have some time to hang out before the event too.
And
gotcha.
Greece isn't a terrible place to do a boot camp.
It's only one of the most
either.
beautiful places on the planet to relax and to take some nice T poses for the Instagram, right?
For sure. I'll remember too.
All right, plenty of T poses. Muzzy, congratulations. We'll see you back next week for playoffs. All right, well, apparently we got to get a move on.
Yeah. See you, Muzz.
Later, dude.
You're out of here.
All right, so with that, I believe all 8 players are determined for playoffs, not just Division A, but Division B. Yep. But this also has more matches for playoff seeding. And as we mentioned, Muzzy is going to be seeded directly into the losers bracket, right, at 4th place.
Yes.
For playoffs, which is already kind of a bad place to be, because the way we're working is, for people again who don't know, first seed will be seeded with a round bye as if they already had beaten the 4th place finisher. That's your advantage for finishing first in your division. And that's huge, right? That's like a 12-13% edge if you assume everything is 50-50.
Yeah.
And that's like, a really great opportunity because you don't really get those kinds of edges in Hearthstone. You get like 2 to 3% usually at most.
Yeah. Can we pull up the standings one more time? I'd like to take a look at Division A to kind of explain everything that's happening. Muzzy could tie for Nalgidon in record if Nalgidon loses his final match against Eddie, but Nalgidon is 2-0 against Muzzy on the season. So no complicated tiebreakers there. Nalgidon would have the head-to-head, so that's why we're saying Muzzy has locked in that 4th seed because there's nobody that he can pass since his matches are finished for the week. And as we mentioned earlier, regardless of the outcome for Stripecrow in this next match, there's no way he catches ETC because ETC has the 2-0 head-to-head versus Stripecrow on the season, so he's locked in that relegation spot. So outside of some movement up in the top 3 with Eddie versus Nalgidon as a match still left to happen, Division A is mostly set in stone, at least as far as playoffs and relegation.
Yep. And then the other match happening in Division B, which we'll bring up again right before it, Erase versus Olay, both at 4-9. Winner of that will have the sole possessor of the 7th place spot, making the 8th place person the relegated player. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up, but for now we're going to have Strife